So you learned how to name branched hydrocarbons, you learned how to name structural isomers, and now we're going to talk a little bit about geometric isomers. And as the name suggests, geometric isomers have something to do with molecular geometry. But this is important because when a molecule happens to have a double bond, what really happens is that the double bond becomes rigid and locks the atoms into a fixed position. So with a single bond, technically speaking, the atoms that are bonded in a single bond can rotate like 360 degrees around. So they can do that. But with a double bond, it's like shaking hands with two hands, and it's really, really hard to rotate around that bond. So there's actually two distinct possibilities that can occur around a double bond. And up until now, we didn't care about it, but now we actually are going to care about it. And they have specific names, and one is called a cis isomer, and the other is called a trans isomer. Cis isomers are ones where the substituents, or branches, are on the same side of the double bond, and trans are where the branches, thought I fixed this, are on opposite sides of the double bond. So, in the case of cis-2-butene, I'm going to count my carbons, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4. It actually doesn't matter. But what you're going to hopefully see is that going around the double bond, the hydrogens in this case, which aren't actually branches, but the way that they're positioned are on the same side of the double bond. Now, in the exact same structure, or in the exact same isomeral structure, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 carbons again. So when I follow my parent chain, oops, not what I wanted the highlight. So when I follow my chain, I hopefully can see that the hydrogens are on opposite sides of the double bond. So when it's on opposite sides, it's trans, and when they are on same sides, it's cis. So the rules for naming cis and trans isomers are actually very similar to everything else that we've done so far. The first thing we do is we find the longest continuous chain of carbons. So 1, 2, I don't like that color. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is a chain. It's 5 carbons long, no matter how I count it, or no matter how I count it. And then I'm going to count the number of carbons and number them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And in this case, I follow the rules where I count closest to the multiple bond. So going from, in this case, sort of left to right or down instead of up will give me the appropriate numbering of my chain. And then I'm going to note, so I'm going to start by naming the chain, and this is 5 carbons long, so it's going to be a pent. And because there's a double bond, it's going to be a pentene. And the double bond happens to be located after the second carbon, so it's simply a 2-pentene. And up until now, that's all we would have done to name it. But if we were going to change this to identify whether it is a cis or a trans geometric isomer, I'm going to take a look at where the hydrogens for this particular one are located. And they appear to be on the same side of the double bond, which means that this is a cis-2-pentene. Okay. Here's another example. It happens to be the same structure, but a different orientation. So these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 carbons long. And when I go to number it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I could go back the other way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But I see that I get to my double bond going from left to right instead of going from right to left. So this is the appropriate numbering scheme. So now I'm going to identify that it is a double bond by giving it an ENE. And because it's a pent, or because it's 5 carbons long, it is a pentene And because the double bond happens to be after the second carbon again, it is a 2-pentene. But when I take a look at the hydrogens in this case, they are on opposite sides of the double bond, which means that this would be a trans 2-pentene. So that's not so bad, and this isn't too hard to do, so we're going to do a couple of other. We're going to draw some here. So again, it ends up being a pentene, as you can see, but I'm going to start by deconstructing or dissecting the name. The ENE tells me it's 2 carbons, or it's a double bond somewhere. The pent tells me it is 5 carbons long. The 2 tells me the location of the double bond. So I'm going to start with that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to single bond all of them together, just like I have in the past. And then I'm going to count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'm going to add my double bond after the second carbon, like so. So then it says that I have a 2-bromo and a 3-methyl. Well, I'm familiar with what the methyl is. The YL is a branch, and meth tells me it's 3 carbons long, or I'm sorry, not 3 carbons long, it's 1 carbon long, and the 3 tells me the location of the branch. So I'm going to put that branch here, and I'm going to put the carbon here. Okay. Then I see that there's a 2-bromo. Now, I don't know what a bromo is. I might have a guess, but up until now, we hadn't really talked about what a bromo is, and it falls into a category of when halogens are used in organic chemistry. They're called alkyl halides. That's something we'll learn about next week. Basically, fluorine, chlorine, bromine, and iodine are examples of the alkyl halides, and I sincerely apologize for spelling fluorine wrong. I have no idea what happened there, but it's Fluorine. In any case, so on the second carbon, I need to put a bromo or a bromo group or a bromine, and because I'm told that this is cis, the bromine has to be on the same side of the double bond. So I'm going to do my bromine here, and I'm going to write Br. So now all I have to do is go back and add hydrogens. So the first carbon has bonded once, so it needs 3 hydrogens. The second carbon has 1, 2, 3, 4 bonds. It doesn't need anything. The third carbon has 1, 2, 3, 4 bonds. It doesn't need anything. The fourth carbon has 2 bonds, so it needs 2 hydrogens. And the fifth carbon has 1 bond, so it needs 3 hydrogens. Bromine doesn't need anything. It just is drawn as it is. And the carbon technically needs to have 3 hydrogens. That's the methyl. Now, technically speaking, I guess you could go back and draw the remaining valence electrons around bromine, but most organic chemists don't do that, so I probably won't going forward. It's just assumed that they're there. So that would be an example of cis 2 bromo 3 methyl 2-pentene. Now we're going to do the trans version, just so you can see it. And again, the ENE tells me it's a double bond. Pent tells me they are 5 carbons long, and the 2 tells me the location of the double bond. So we'll start with that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'm going to single bond everything together. And then I'm going to number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'm going to add my double bond after the second carbon. So far, so good. I am familiar with the YL, which tells me that I have a branch. The meth tells me it is a 1 carbon long branch, and the 3 tells me its location. So, simply put, I'm going to put a methyl branch on the third carbon. Now, we've already discussed what a bromo is, and we've already decided that I can't spell. Oh boy, I still can't spell. Fluorine. Good, fluorine. That's better. So then I'm going to put this on the second carbon, and because it's trans, I have to this time put the bromine going opposite of the methyl. So now I'm going to go back and add my hydrogens. The first carbon gets 3. The second carbon has 4 bonds already. The third carbon has 4 bonds already. The fourth carbon has 2 bonds, and the fifth carbon has 1 bond, so it needs 3. The methyl branch needs 3 hydrogens around it, and so everything is drawn correctly. Now, some of you might be asking, well, does the bromine have to go down, or could it go up and the methyl go down instead of up? The answer to that question is actually it kind of doesn't matter for how we're drawing our structures. Like, that might be something that might be more of a concern if you were to take the organic chemistry in college, but not for us. So this would also be correct. As long as you have the appropriate number of carbons present and the appropriate number of hydrogens present, and the fact that they would be, in this case, opposite sides of the double bond. So that's it for today. You're going to be doing a worksheet with cis or trans isomers. The first part of the worksheet is to name them. The second part of the worksheet is to draw them. So good luck with that. And that worksheet will be due Sunday at 11 o'clock or something like that. So good luck, and we will talk next week.